Welcome back to episode 4 of the Out on a Limb movie review show. Today, in our review, we spiced it up a little bit with a little more of an action movie and decided to go with No Country for Old Men. Now, this was a movie Ty chose as we switch off the movies each week, and in general, it was just a pretty crazy movie.
Yeah, so first watching this movie, I don't know why, but as you know, we watched a movie this week and I spend like hours watching previews. So I've seen the preview to this movie like at least 10 times and I've just been saving it for radio waiting to watch it. And I had so much hype, I was so hyped to watch this movie. I thought it was going to be one of the best movies I've ever seen. And at first, it didn't live up to my expectations at all. But as I think about the movie and as I watch some YouTube videos, read some articles, and I really think closely, I'm able to like truly appreciate every small detail in the movie and what it really all meant. And I can like happily say now that it did live up to the hype.
Yeah, for me, I think that I liked it a little bit less than you. And as well, I was really confused when I first ended it. Like, I know I texted you. I was like, what is going on right now? But after watching some videos as well and talking to you and seeing your thoughts on it, it definitely grew my interest in it. And I was able to see how it was considered such a good movie. But to start as well with our viewer experience, which we kind of talked about already a little bit, I was just extremely confused. Like throughout the middle of the movie, I wasn't that confused on the plot, but the end kind of just left me sitting there, like why did the movie end this way? And I was super confused about it. But at the same time, the entire movie there was never really a dull moment. It was super intriguing and super action packed, which made it a lot more interesting. And in the end, it was a little bit confusing, but it was a pretty good viewer experience for me.
Yeah, well, I feel like this movie's great because a lot of the movies that we watch in general and a lot of the movies that like I watch, I feel like you watch them for the message, not totally for the entertainment purposes. Like some of the best movies I've ever seen aren't as entertaining as like a James Bond action film, but this one really did it all, and I love it because just every moment was action packed and it delivered a great message and was really strong like thematically and symbolically, but it also was entertaining throughout and I really I wasn't bored at any point in the movie.
Yeah, so for our categories for No Country for Old Men, we've got story and how the story is told out of 10 points. We've got the character development out of 20 points, the acting out of 15 points, the production out of 10 points, the symbolism out of 20 points, and the theme/message out of 25 points. So to start with the story, it's 0 through 10.
Yeah, so for this we usually just talk about the story conceptually, how conceptually interesting it is, but we feel like that there are definitely more like layers to a story. So this week we kind of added on to this section, and it's not just the story conceptually. It's in addition the story conceptually. It's also how the story is told, and just like smaller details within the story rather than the big picture. And so for the story, out of 10, I gave it a 7. This was definitely the weakest part of the film for me. I thought it wasn't like conceptually it wasn't a very interesting story. It was just about, it's pretty cliche. It was just about like a guy from the Spanish cartel or the Mexican cartel who hunted down some dude who stole some money. So it's pretty like simple conceptually. And what I didn't love about this movie was the sheriff, who's barely in the movie. He's considered the protagonist, and I didn't love that. You didn't really get to know him as a character that well. And I know a lot of people can look past that and realize that he didn't need to be on the screen a ton, but I didn't like that I didn't really get to know the main character. And also, this part I don't take off points for. I thought it definitely contributed to 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 like the message of the movie, but all the main characters like Carson Wells and Llewellyn, who dominates the screen time for the movie. They're anticlimactic endings. They pretty much just die and the movie continues, and it's there's no climax. There's nothing leading up to it. It's kind of just random. They die and there's nothing afterwards.
Yeah, for story for me, it was also the worst part of the movie because I feel like it seemed just like a classic horror movie. So when you kind of watched it just at the first layer, like you were saying, it was just like this one guy hunting people down, and the ending wasn't super satisfying. It was sort of all over the place. Like, we're seeing so many different perspectives from a lot of different characters that we don't really get to understand what's going on even. Like, we never really get to understand until later in the movie what actually happened and who the characters are and what's going on. So it can be very confusing for the watcher, like for the person watching a movie. So I gave the story and how it's told a 6 out of 10, and that's the main thing that bumped the grade of this movie down. But the other categories definitely bring it up.
Yeah, the problem with this movie is just how how like I know it contributes to the message, but really each character is just insignificant except the villain, and it's told from three different perspectives, and it's just kind of confusing how the story is told. But other than that, it kind of just goes upwards from here. So our next category is character,
Oh, wait,
and
before we continue, Ty,
yeah,
what was your grade for story?
mine was 7. Mine was 7. You gave it a 6. I gave it a 7. So for character and character development, which is our next section, this one's out of 20 because clearly it's more important. And I just want to start off by saying the villain Anton Chigurh. I think I'm just gonna call him Anton. I'm gonna call him his first name because I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But this dude, he's the second. I think he's my second favorite villain out of any movie I've ever seen. He's right behind the Joker in terms of villains ever, and to me, this guy's even scarier than the Joker. I think he's just an amazing villain, and I like. It's just awesome to have a good villain in a movie like this.
Yeah, Anton Chigurh was a sick character because he barely speaks at all. His voice, I know we talked about this, his voice was sick. Like, his super deep and like raspy voice, and in general just added to his character of being scary, made like him being such like a figure of death. All the aspects of it, him wearing black, everything made it a lot better in my opinion. But with other characters, Llewellyn, who has dominates the screen time, and he seems to be like a smart and great guy. Like, his morale and personality in general seems to be good. He's loyal to his wife. He just came across a bunch of money and he wants to escape the country and get away from the person chasing him. All of that happens. We see like his development as trying to escape from Anton, and then he's not even killed by Chigurh. He's killed by a group of the Mexican cartel, and we don't even see his death. It's super quick and seems unimportant. And at first, I thought I didn't like that, but then I saw how all the other character stories unraveled, and I think it added to the movie's narrative.
Yeah, I think that I think when we think about characters in this movie, obviously the sheriff is significant because he's the protagonist. But when you're not thinking like the theme, the messages, just the movie itself, like not thinking that deeply into it, like the villain with his air gun that's used to like kill cattle, he's actually insane. Like, just everything about him is creepy. The way that he like pops up, he's pretty much invincible throughout the movie, except at the end, which we'll talk about later. But just because of Anton himself, Chigurh, I'm giving the character category an 18 out of 20, just because such a cool villain.
Yeah, I gave the character and character development a 17 out of 20 because I also liked, as I said, the narrative dying quick. Carson Wells was actually an interesting character to me because he came in looking super important and like a smart guy. And it looks like he's about to make a huge impact, and then Chigurh just kills him. Like, he's in the middle of a sentence, and Chigurh just randomly kills him. And then Carla Jean decided not to be just another victim of Chigurh and decide to stand up to his game of the coin toss. And while she did die, she stood up to his idea of letting fate take your chance of living or dying. So I gave that a 17 out of 20 because in general I thought the character development was solid and the villain was really really good. But I think compared to other movies like Fight Club and Shawshank, it's not on the same level.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next category is acting, and the guy who plays Anton Chigurh, Javier Bardem, he's so scary. He embodies the character so well. I love him. Like the casting was perfect for him as the villain. It's just like looking at him, he's kind of like visually he's kind of not. I don't know if this was just me, but it's kind of not what you expect for like your stereotypical villain. He looks pretty normal. He kind of just looks like a normal guy.
No, I thought his haircut was like, it was sick. Like it made him look like a creep.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. He looks like a creepy guy, but he doesn't exactly look like a super villain.
He doesn't look like a
invincible.
super villain. He looks like just like a creepy dude.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way that he's like, I don't know if it's just like his deep voice and the way that he talks and like the coin flip, just everything he does is so creepy, and he's such a good villain in the movie. So if he were the only character in the movie, I'd give it a 15 out of 15. He's such a good actor. But just because there are other characters in the movie who weren't as like memorable, their acting performances, I'm giving it a 14 out of 15. But he was such a good villain.
Yeah, I'm with you here too. I'm so close to giving it a 15. I think if the other actors were as good as Bardem, then maybe I would have given it a 15. But there are some other movies that I've seen, like The Joker, which I think have had better acting performances. But I think a 14 it's super close to a 15. I think Javier Bardem's it seems like every single word that Chigurh speaks in the movie seems thought out. He doesn't speak that much, but every single word he says has meaning to it. He never says something that like is pointless. Everything he says has to do with life or death. And I think like Javier Bardem's his way of going about becoming this character, it like his look, like when killing them, like his face, like in general, he just looks like an insane super villain.
Yeah, well,
and then
he like it's like he loves seeing people die. It's like they talk about in the movie how he has like a moral code and his moral code is killing people. Like people, if he's in a situation where someone like where he has the potential to kill someone, he kills them. It's simple. And he's just an amazing villain, and he's creepy as shit. Oh my god.
Yeah, I thought the other actors. I thought Josh Brolin was definitely solid. Like he was pretty good, and Woody Harrelson was also pretty good, but they weren't anything super special.
Yeah, Woody Harrelson's always good. I love that guy.
Yeah, so I gave it a 14 as well. But moving on to production and directing, this is 0 out of 10, and the main thing that makes up this section.
Well, this is 0 to 10. You're not giving it a 0 out of 10, right?
Oh no, 0 to 10. Sorry. The main thing that makes up production is the air gun. The air gun is the sickest thing I've ever seen in a movie. Like the sickest prop, or the like sickest weapon, cooler than the Infinity Gauntlet. I think it is the coolest gun, or like not just gun, but prop in a movie, or an item in a movie that I've maybe ever seen.
Yeah, also with production and directing, that kind of includes like casting and also just like the wardrobe, and just thinking about the main antagonist, Anton Chigurh. Like the casting of Javier Bardem was beautiful. They couldn't have cast anyone better for that role. And also the way that they like dress him and the haircut that he has, like he's just exactly he just perfectly plays that character, and it's like he's set up for success with his wardrobe, with his haircut, just the way that he appears in the movie. He appears as a creepy normal guy, but he ultimately turns out to be like a murdering like psychopath. And I think that's exactly what they were going for. So I give it a 9 out of 10. It was great. The production
Yeah,
and
for
directing was
production,
really
the
good.
other thing that I noticed also while watching one of the videos was that there was no music in the movie, and I saw a little something that like, uh, Ed Thomas, the sheriff, is always talking about how he never noticed God's presence in life and like how God couldn't save anyone, but the only constant thing throughout the entire movie is the wind blowing. So maybe that's supposed to represent, and we'll get into symbolism, but maybe that represents God's presence. And even though like even if God does have a presence, how nothing can stop someone from dying or something happening to them. And then also the last thing about production that I thought was really good was how it was extremely graphic. Like it was kind of a gruesome movie to watch. Like they were not afraid to show the horrors of the murder and all that. And I think that was definitely on purpose because it was meant to show how like how terrible the world is, honestly. Like how scary it can be sometimes. So I gave it a 9 out of 10 as well. It's right behind Fight Club for me. That's why I didn't give it a 10. Using the out on a limb rules, it's not the best I've ever seen. So I gave it a 9.
Yeah, so you mentioned like the presence or like lack thereof of God in this movie. And I think that it's like a great way to transition into symbolism, which is our next category. And this movie, every single scene, there was a symbol that contributed to the main message of the film. And just the little symbols, I think that is what makes this movie great. So you mentioned God and the wind. So in this movie, every time a character is faced with death, faced with Anton Chigurh about to murder them, they either pray, they do something because they're expecting a miracle. Everyone expects God to be with them when they're about to die. And this movie shows that God God is real, but God is silent. And people don't realize that there isn't going to be a miracle every time they're faced with death. Life is it's chance. It's all about chance. So without having God be with having God be silent in this film, whenever a character is about to die, they're praying to God, but it doesn't change anything. It contributes to the message that the only thing that can save you from death is luck.
I think that this movie is less about the absence of God and more about that life isn't about God. That while God may have a presence, he's not absent. Life isn't about God. It's just about you being able to live on this earth and survive and thrive and interact with other people and be able to do basic human things. And in life, there's nothing that can stop certain things. That's just the way that life is. And I think the whole point of this movie is to show that. And we can even see it in the end with Chigurh, where he seems to be this unstoppable person the entire movie. But in the end, he gets in a car accident and bribes two little kids to not say anything. And he's hurt and his elbow's broken. And it shows that he's not this invincible person. Nobody is. And even when this one person is representing like a superhuman, that every single person has vulnerability to them and anything could happen at any time.
Yeah, well, also this is related to God, but it's unrelated to the point that I just made. I feel like Chigurh is kind of like a god like figure in the movie. He's pretty much invincible. Everyone that he faces with, he pretty much takes care of them. He murders them, and he's even when he gets shot, he like swiftly takes care of it, and it doesn't really affect him at all. So throughout the movie, he's kind of like invincible, and I feel like when he gets in that car crash at the end, it shows that no one's invincible, and that everyone is human and everyone's susceptible to bad luck, and life can really just end at the snap of a finger or a flip of a coin, and nothing's gonna happen. It's like it's a
Yeah.
morbid, but it's a realistic message that this movie gives.
Yeah, and the other thing I liked about the symbol was talking about the absence of God. It's like the absence of the sheriff within all of the action. I think we don't see a lot of screen time from the sheriff because he lives life in fear, and he lives life in fear of like Chigurh and of death. Like he's scared to die, and his cousin, I believe it was Ellis, explains to him how their uncle was like murdered in this like crazy thing, just to show him that the world has always been this dark. Like the world has always been this bad, and the sheriff admits that he just feels overmatched with everything going on in it. And I think the reason that he does like that, the reason that he stays away from all the action is because he's scared that he can't handle what the world is like. And I think that contributes to the title of No Country for Old Men, that this person is no longer fit to participate in society and make an impact, and so he just feels overmatched and kind of just moves on to the next part of his life, which is just living until he's dead.
Yeah, another symbol that I want to bring up, which is probably the biggest symbol in the film, is just the villain himself, Anton Chigurh. He kind of, to me, he represents like death and fate. And there's a quote later in the movie. The cousin who you just mentioned, he says to the sheriff, "You can't stop what's coming." And I think that Anton Chigurh, the villain, represents that quote really well. He pretty much every time he has a victim, the only way that the only way out, the only option he gives them is like the flip of a coin, and that's the only way that you could evade death. And obviously that's unrealistic. If someone's about to murder you, they're not going to let you flip a coin. But that coin flip represents the chance that you may get lucky and you may escape death when you're supposed to die. And his moral code is pretty much just, sometimes he offers his victims the chance to flip the coin, sometimes he doesn't. He pretty much represents that in certain cases you could avoid fate, but in 99% of circumstances you can't stop what's coming, and fate's always going to get to you.
Yeah, so I really like the symbolism of the movie. At first, it's not something I really understood, but I really like the symbolism of Chigurh, and I thought the thing about the absence of God, or life just not being about counting on God, I thought that was really good too. So I gave it a 19 out of 20.
Yeah, symbolism, there's one symbol that I just every time, I mean, every little detail in this movie kind of contributes to the theme of like luck, just luck, and how fate is pretty much decided by luck in general, and everything in life comes down to luck. And there are a couple of little things in the movie that I want to bring up real quick. One of them was, there's a scene where Chigurh is driving on a bridge, and there's a bird sitting, a bird perched on the rails of the bridge, and he shoots a shot at it and he misses the bird. The bird flies away and life continues. So that bird escaped death by the narrow luck that Chigurh missed. And when Chigurh goes to the convenience store and he offers the person working at the store, he offers them a coin flip, and the guy calls heads, the coin lands on heads, and he survives. That symbol of the coin flip shows, it contributes to that theme of luck, how the only way to escape death is getting lucky. And it's something that Chigurh believes in, that rarely but sometimes he'll offer his victims the chance to flip a coin, which represents the luck that they have to avoid their fate. And it happens multiple times. The coin flip comes up multiple times, because at the end of the movie, he tells Llewellyn, who's dead, he tells his wife, flip this coin. And she knows what's going to happen. She knows that if she calls it right, she'll survive. If she doesn't call it right, she'll die. But she assumes that she's going to be wrong either way. He knows what the coin will be, and he's going to kill her either way. So she refuses to flip the coin, and in return, Chigurh murders her. And this is kind of an anticlimactic like ending to like her life. She's a pretty prominent character in the movie, but it just goes to show how if you refuse or you deny that luck is, when it comes down to it, luck is the only thing that can save you. If you deny that, you hope that God's going to save you by a miracle, and you deny that luck, it comes down to luck and luck will save you. You have no way out, because luck is the only way you can escape death when it's right at your door.
Well, the thing that I thought was interesting too was that Chigurh throughout the whole movie thinks of himself as this sort of god, right? And everyone constantly obeys him. He has never lost a battle. He kills every single person he comes face to face with. And even if he does kill Carla Jean, she ends up winning the game. Because while she decided not to play the game of luck and dying, he himself is like, he's oblivious to how he plays into the game of luck as well. And another thing that I saw that I was reading about was that if she had decided to play the game of the coin toss for any second, for any minute longer, Chigurh may have never gotten into that car crash that he did. So I think that's supposed to kind of like show the theme and also symbolize as well about how everyone is vulnerable to the game of luck in life. There are no exceptions to who could die at the snap of a finger or the flip of a coin. And I think Carla Jean beating him in that game sort of showed how even if he was this like crazy guy who killed everyone, he was no immortal.
Yeah, I really feel a similar way to you. And before we get into theme, I just want to give my score for symbolism real quick. And the reason that I love this film so much is because of the intricate symbols and how many there are, and how every little detail in the film has a purpose, and that you don't really see that often. A lot of movies, they'll have scenes that fill space. There will the setting, just little things won't have any meaning. They'll just be they won't really contribute to the film. They'll just be there to like set background. But I think that just every little thing in this movie contributes to the purpose of the film. And I think that it's so rare, and I've really never seen a movie that does it as well as this one. So I give it a 20 out of 20, perfect score, just because of all the tiny symbols that are so meaningful.
Yeah, I gave symbolism a 19 out of 20. Moving on now to theme and message. We talked a little bit already about the wife, but I was just interested in the theme about how like nothing is guaranteed in life. And for me, the thing that I had to accept and that I had to realize was that this movie was less about what actually happened literally and more about like how it happened, if that makes sense. So like not what actually happened was like who killing who and like how they killed each other, and while the air gun was cool, just like not how he killed his victims, but sort of like who lives, who dies, and who did what. So like when you think about who was part of the action, you saw the sheriff was not part of the action at all, and he ends up surviving. But at the same time, you could bring up the argument that he never got to enjoy the rush of what life is like, and now his next milestone in life is death. And it represents that in the dreams at the end of the movie about him reuniting with his father who's dead, kind of represents that the next step in his life is him seeing his father when he's dead, and that he never really got to have a purpose at this old age, and that society was no longer for him.
I feel like a big theme in this movie, I've brought it up so many times, is luck. But really diving into the concept of luck, if you think about it, everything in life comes down to luck. Think about LeBron James, probably the best athlete in the world right now, or at least the most iconic. Let's say LeBron James got into a car accident when he was 16 years old and he was never able to play basketball again. That's bad luck, and that would have changed everything. LeBron James wouldn't even have been in the NBA. He wouldn't have been this great player that inspires generations, that does all of these great things. And I think if you just really think about greatness, you just think about every little thing in life, it can all be either enhanced by luck or it could be ruined by luck. And as much as skill and like fate can be in your own hands, it all comes down to luck at a certain point. If you're
Yeah, can I
put
add on to that?
Yeah.
So you were talking about how if LeBron got into a car accident and his basketball career would have never been the same. But let's talk about Derrick Rose, who like was one of the best NBA players in the league at a young age, won the MVP, I think the youngest MVP of all time, looked like he was going to take over the league, and then his career was ruined by injuries after a torn ACL and then continuous injuries. And people always love to say, what if he had never gotten hurt? How would he have dominated the league? What would have happened? And as you said, it goes to show how it is really all about luck. Who gets the opportunities and who doesn't. And while there can be an advantage for certain people that were better off maybe younger and maybe are in a better financial situation, at the end of the day, anything could happen, and it's not God that can protect you from that. Nothing can protect you from the danger of what the world is like.
I love this movie so much because it really just brings up the question, like, what if? Just in general, what if? What if something good happened? What if something good didn't happen to you? Like, it's just every little thing in life is a what if. Like, are we lucky because we've survived to 15 years old? Like, if you think about it, we might complain that we're unlucky because we have some fantasy basketball injuries, but it really puts everything in perspective that like luck is all around you. Every little thing in your life is comes down to luck. And I'd say that both of us are pretty lucky because of the situations that we're in, and we're healthy and we're happy. And I think that is lucky. And even though there are smaller things that contribute to luck, like maybe you make like a glitchy play happens in Madden and you get pissed, but if you really think about it, we're both lucky people. And since everything comes down to luck in general, like luck really decides, it can really influence who you are, how you live, and how long you live. It's just
Maybe what this movie too is about is having people look around and see what they have in life and being grateful for what you have at this particular moment. And I think maybe too it's more about not looking into the future about what could happen, or looking into the past about what if this didn't happen, what if this person never got hurt. And maybe it's just more about being grateful for the time that you have, because your time on earth could end at any given moment and nothing can stop that. And Chigurh represents how if he walks into your hotel room, and even if he's not who you're not who he's looking for, you could die. Like, I think Chigurh is just supposed to represent that death can approach you at any time, and that you should probably just be grateful and happy to live in the moment that you have and not worry about the past or the future.
Yeah, but this show is all about asking why. Like, why a film does this, why a film does that. But I feel like what No Country for Old Men does is it tells you not to ask why. Like, most things in life have no reason at all for them. They just come down to luck. Like, why did Derrick Rose tear his ACL? He was unlucky. It's simple. A lot of things just come down to luck. And this movie kind of tells you not to ask why something happened, but appreciate good things, and not really ask why, but focus on what is there and what you're going to do in the future, instead of asking why did this happen to me, why is this so horrible, because often in life there really is no answer to that question.
And as we talked about with other movies, something that's really important to me is how it impacted our life and how it impacted your outlook on what life is like. So for Fight Club, that meant looking for new opportunities and chasing what you want in life. And for Shawshank, it meant not losing hope in your reality and how things can change. And I think that the way that this movie changed my outlook on life was to be appreciative for what I have, and to just be be happy to live in the present and not worry about the past or the future, because those are things that I cannot there's things that I cannot impact. Like there's nothing that I could do to impact what happens in certain situations. So just be grateful to live in the present.
Yeah, well, for me, this movie simply means, like, you can't stop what's coming. You can't control what happens in the past, what happens in the future, because it's gonna happen. So there's no need to worry about it, and you should just live in the present. As the cousin says at the end of the movie, he says to the sheriff, "You can't stop what's coming," and that's kind of what the character of Anton Chigurh represents. And I feel like an interesting message, because that's a fact. You can't stop what's coming. So what that teaches you is to not worry about what's coming, because you can't stop it.
So to finish it up for our final scores, I ended up giving it an 87 out of 100, so higher than Social Network, but lower than Fight Club and Shawshank. And in general, it was a thrilling movie to watch, and it was a very cool experience. And I think the most satisfying and best part was finally being able to put it all together yourself to see what the movie really meant. But it was, in general, a great movie to review.
Yeah. For me, I gave it a 90. I loved the movie. I think it was. I agree. I think it was better than Social Network. I think it was behind Shawshank and Fight Club. And if I give it a 90, you give it an 87. That we round up, so that's an 89 for our combined rankings. And that just about wraps it up for this episode of Out on a Limb. And next week, or not next week, actually, we're going to try to. Right now it's Wednesday. You'll probably be hearing this on a Thursday. And we're going to try to record our Parasite episode on Saturday. Get that up by Sunday. So expect Parasite this weekend. No Country for Old Men. Obviously, you just listened to it. So hopefully it's a Thursday. We got it out by Thursday. Parasite Sunday. And
make sure to follow us on Instagram as well, at Out on a Limb Show, and make sure to stay tuned on there, because that's where we're going to be posting all our updates. And once we get more reviews coming, we'll have a list and some rankings that will change around as we watch more movies. But that's going to do it from Out on a Limb. We hope you guys are doing well and enjoyed No Country for Old Men.